Hello, all. With apologies to the late Rod Serling for this blatant ripoff, you are about to enter another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land of imagination. Next up, the Oddities and Anomalies Zone. This is Dr. Bruce, welcoming you to yet another edition of the Spiritual Hitchhiker's Practical Guide to the Afterlife and Beyond. Tonight's topic may indeed be worthy of Rod Serling's Twilight Zone. We're going to be exploring oddities and anomalies that often defy explanation, or at least sometimes the theories offered to explain them are as incredulous as the phenomena itself. We'll be taking a look at some intriguing, mysterious, and sometimes baffling phenomena, such as the Mandela Effect, time slips, alternate universes, and parallel lives. We'll also be sharing some of the viewers' experiences with these amazing anomalies and oddities. Let's begin with something called the Mandela Effect, which is when a large group of people collectively remember that something happened or looked a certain way when, in reality, it never did. Or did it? It was named the Mandela Effect by a lady by the name of Fiona Broome, who had a vivid memory of the former South African president Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s in prison, even though he was released in 1990 and lived until 2013. As Broome began to talk to other people about her memories, she learned that she wasn't alone. Others remembered seeing news coverage of Mandela's death, as well as a speech by his widow. She soon discovered that, strangely enough, many people also believed that he had been dead for years. This led to the discovery of many other cases of so called mass false memories. This collective misremembering suggests intriguing questions about memory, shared experiences, and perhaps even the nature of reality itself. So let's explore a few notable examples to bring this concept to life. The first one is the Monopoly Man's Monocle. Now, I don't know about you, but as a kid, that was a common board game that I loved to play, Monopoly. And a very common recollection is that the Monopoly mascot, Rich Uncle Pennybags, sports a monocle. I always thought he did. However, in reality, he never had one. This widespread misremembering has puzzled many who are convinced of their memory. Now, do you remember Uncle Pennybags wearing a monocle? The next one, number two, one of the most famous lines in cinema history, often quoted, is Luke, I am your father. And that's from Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. Well, actually, that's wrong. That's what they say. It's no, I am your father. The misquoted line has become so ingrained in popular culture that the incorrect version is often used in parodies and homages to Star Wars. Which do you remember? Here are some other examples. Fruit of the Loom. Now that's a men's underwear. Fruit of the Loom. And if you remember, their corporate brand is fruit, a bunch of fruit. But there's one addition to that bunch of fruit. When respondents in a test of how well they remembered company logos were asked to choose among the brand's real logo, one with a cornucopia and another with a plate, in other words, the fruit in front of a cornucopia and the other with the fruit on the plate, people were more likely to pick the cornucopia version despite never having interacted with a cornucopia in real life. Now, what strikes some people as odd is the fact that they chose cornucopia over the plate, because plates are more frequently associated with fruit. Which one do you remember? When I saw this, I swore that it was with the cornucopia, and that's what I remember. And then there's good old Mickey Mouse. I live about half an hour from Disneyland, so um, I'm a fan of Mickey Mouse. Have been since I was a kid. Now here's a question: does Mickey Mouse wear suspenders or not? Actually, he doesn't. What do you remember? Many people remember him with suspenders. Another one is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. What did the evil queen say to the mirror on the wall? I could swear that it was mirror, mirror on the wall. That's what I remember. But in actuality, it was magic mirror on the wall. Which do you remember? And then there's that famous line from the much loved movie Casablanca, starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman. Was it play it again, Sam? Or play it once, Sam? In the movie Casablanca, the actual line of what is said by Ingrid Bergman's character Ilsa is, play it once, Sam, for old time's sake. But many people swear that it was play it again, Sam. Which do you remember? I have one to add for myself. Now, I am and have been for many, many years. I'm going back to grammar school. I've always been a student of history. That was my favorite subject in school. That's the one I probably most excelled at. And I've always been a student of history. In 2019, when COVID struck, the coronavirus, it was brought out. It was mentioned that that was 2019. In 1917 or 18, I believe it was, the Spanish flu ravaged the planet. And I think millions of people were supposed to have died in the Spanish flu. But I don't remember ever having read or heard about the Spanish flu. Did you? These examples illustrate the curious nature of the Mandela Effect. They invite us to ponder the reliabilities of our memories and the possibility of alternate realities or universes. Now, cognitive psychologists tell us that the Mandela Effect is primarily due to a cognitive function called collective false memory. This is when we remember events that never really happened, or we introduce errors and distortions into memories of certain experiences. These false memories can seem very real and vivid in one's mind, even though they are entirely incorrect. Well, some quantum physicists take a different approach to the Mandela effect, and they ask two questions in regard to it. Number one, is it possible that there are multiple possible past histories of the universe where different observable macroscopic outcomes have occurred? That would lead to a universe today that has the same quantum state that our universe possesses. And number two, is it possible that a thought, memory, past experience, or even a person's consciousness from one of those universes could overlap or even swap with one from this present universe we inhabit? In other words, one where Nelson Mandela did die in prison. The next oddity and anomaly are time slips. A time slip is an event during which a person or a group of people travel through time via unexplained means. Unlike time travel in science fiction, which typically involves technology, like H.G. Wells' Time Machine, or for our cousins across the pond, Doctor Who's TARDIS, I believe is called. And that time slips, unlike those, time slips are involuntary and spontaneous. Those who experience them often report a sudden and brief immersion in a different era, with the environment around them appearing to belong to a different time period. These experiences challenge our understanding of time as a linear and a constant flow. There are several characteristics of time slips. First one is suddenness. Time slips are often described as sudden and unexpected. The person involved may be walking in a familiar area when their surroundings abruptly change. Number two, detailed perception. The person experiencing the time slip usually notices differences in architecture, fashion, technology, and other markers of a different era. Number three, brief duration. These experiences are typically fleeting, lasting only a few moments or minutes, after which the person returns to the present. Now, I say fleeting, but in a moment, we're going to look at a possible time slip which was anything but fleeting. Number four, involvement of familiar places. Time slips often occur in familiar places, which makes the perceived changes even more jarring for the individual. One of the most famous cases is the Moberly Jourdain incident, which occurred in 1901. Two Englishwomen, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, claimed to have slipped back in time while visiting the palace in Versailles, France. They reported seeing buildings and people from the late 18th century, including a figure they believed was Marie Antoinette. Another well documented case is the Bold Street time slip in Liverpool, England, named for the street that it supposedly takes place in, Bold Street. Numerous individuals, and at various times, have reported stepping back into the 1950s or 1960s when entering a particular area of Bold Street. These experiences often include seeing vintage cars, hearing music from the era, and encountering people dressed in period clothing. A third notable incident is the case of the Vanishing Hotel in France, which took place in 1979. At that time, two English couples claimed to experience this time slip while on vacation in France in 1979. They stayed at a quaint hotel in a remote French village where everything, from the furnishings to the dinner plates, seemed old-fashioned. The next morning, however, when checking out, they paid an incredibly low rate for their stay. However, on their return trip through the same area, the hotel seemed to have vanished. No one in the local area knew of such a place, and no sign of it was ever found again. A fourth example of time slips is the Edinburgh time slip in Scotland. Several people have reported time slips while visiting Edinburgh Castle, one of Scotland's most famous landmarks. Visitors have claimed to have seen figures dressed in medieval clothing, battle scenes, and even heard sounds of long gone military activities. These experiences are often described as vivid and almost tangible, leading some to believe that they have traveled back to earlier times in the castle's histories. Now, I put a call out for our viewers or the group members' experiences with these particular phenomena, and we did get one on time slips. So I'm going to read that to you. It's from a woman named Sherry in Connecticut, and she said, "I was once caring for a woman with severe dementia. I went to walk to her, and to my left, an 18-inch void opened, vaguely round. About 3 feet off the ground, there was my mom standing at the stove cooking with a young version of me. My mom had been gone for 30 years. She looked up at me with a shocked look on her face, and I surely must have had a shocked look on my face, and then the void closed. Never happened again. Again, driving down a road in a known battle war area on the coast, I saw a man dressed in 1800s dress with a child-sized coffin on his shoulder crossing into a field. No one else in the car mentioned they saw it. Same road, years later, I saw a guy dressed in a war uniform with a gun on his back walking down the road." Well, I had one happen to me. Well, sort of. Not actually me, but I was involved in one in a roundabout way. As some of you may know, I live in Huntington Beach, California, and a few miles down the road is Long Beach, California. And one of the most famous institutions, I guess you would call it, displays in Long Beach, California, is the Queen Mary, the grand old lady of the seas, which made its last voyage in 1967. The Queen Mary was a very famous ocean liner which plied the voyage across the Atlantic from New York to Southampton in England. Well, in 1967, the Queen Mary was retired and became an attraction in Long Beach Harbor. Many years ago, my wife and I were visiting the Queen Mary and taking the tour. And one part of the tour took us down to the ship's pool. I say down to the ship's pool because on the Queen Mary, the ship's pool is under the is under deck, is under the main deck. I guess that would be logical because the Queen Mary, having crossed the Atlantic many times, well, because of the cold in the North Atlantic, you wouldn't want to have a swimming pool on the deck like many of the cruise ships do these days. Well, we were there and listening to the guide tell about the Queen Mary and the pool area. And of course, there was no water in the pool. The ship had been sitting there for 40 or 50 years. There was nothing around the pool deck itself. And all of a sudden, my wife turns to me and says, "Did you see that?" I said, "No." "Well, what was it?" And she says, "I was looking at the pool area, and all of a sudden, I had like a zzz go across my eyes. And all of a sudden, I saw the pool filled with water. There were people around the pool deck sitting in lounge chairs. In the pool was a lady who was swimming around in the pool, and getting out of the pool was another lady going up the ladder, and she was dressed in a one-piece bathing suit, which was very reminiscent of a 1930s style bathing suit, and she had a bathing cap on. And she said, I could hear the sounds of people laughing and having a good time around the pool. It only lasted like a few seconds, and then it was gone. Now, the Queen Mary, by the way, is one of the most haunted attractions or places in the United States, I might add. So, strange things do happen on the Queen Mary. Happened to her, didn't happen to me. Some possible explanations for time slips. Well, number one, psychological phenomena. Time slips could be a result of psychological factors such as memory distortions, hallucinations, or maybe a form of deja vu. Stress, fatigue, or trauma may trigger these altered perceptions of time and reality. A second possible explanation are environmental factors. Some have suggested that time slips may be triggered by certain locations with specific electromagnetic fields or energy anomalies, though this remains speculative. Third possible explanation, retrospective falsification. This involves people misremembering or falsely interpreting past events when they look back on their own experiences. And a fourth possible explanation, parallel universes or alternate realities. Some more speculative theories propose that time slips might involve brief intersections between parallel universes or alternate timelines, which we'll be discussing more about in a little while. And a fifth possible explanation is from the field of quantum mechanics and quantum physics. Quantum mechanics also proposes a potential explanation, being that the concept of time is less rigid and more malleable than previously thought. Some physicists speculate that under certain conditions, the linear progression of time might be disrupted, allowing for these temporary glimpses into other areas. Another theory postulates that time slips could be the result of natural time wormholes or vortexes that momentarily bridge different periods. Time slips remain one of the most enigmatic and fascinating topics in the realm of the unexplained, regardless of the possible explanations. Now, the implications of time slips are profound, as they suggest the possibility that our experience of time may not be as fixed as we believe. If time slips are indeed real, they could open up new avenues of understanding in physics, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself. The next area I want to look at are alternate universes. The concept of alternate universes, also known as parallel universes or multiverses, has long captivated the human imagination. We discussed this topic along with a bunch of other ideas as part of the last show in this series that I did a couple of weeks ago, and it was entitled The Enigma of Consciousness and the Mechanics of Reincarnation, where science meets spirituality. Now, if you missed it, you can find it in the featured section at the top of this page, or you can go to my YouTube channel, where I have all the videos of all the shows. And the address of that is in the comments section on this page. So let's take a brief look at the basics of this phenomena of alternate realities or alternate universes. Alternate universes suggest the existence of other realms or dimensions that coexist alongside our own, each with its own unique version of reality. Actually, the multiple universe idea was first advanced by a Dr. Hugh Everett in 1955 in his graduate thesis at Princeton University. It essentially posits that at any given moment, the universe divides into countless similar versions, and the next moment, these newborn or baby universes split in a similar fashion. In one universe, you might be watching the show, while in another, you might be reading a book. In another, you might be walking your dog. As Everett explained, the triggering factor for these multiplying worlds is our actions. If we make some choices, one universe instantly splits into two, with different versions and different outcomes. According to this interpretation, every quantum event spawns a new universe, leading to an infinite number of universes where every possible outcome occurs. Now, while alternate universes remain a speculative concept, several scientific theories and models hint at their plausibility. String theory, for instance, which we also discussed a couple of weeks ago, suggests the existence of multiple dimensions beyond our familiar three-dimensional space and one-dimensional time. In cosmology, the inflationary multiverse theory posits that during the rapid expansion of the early universe at the time of the Big Bang, in milliseconds after the Big Bang, bubbles of space-time could have formed, each giving rise to a separate universe with its own physical laws and constants. The possibility of alternate universes raises profound philosophical questions about the nature of reality, free will, and the uniqueness of our universe. If there are countless other universes, are we just one of many possible versions of ourselves? What does this mean for the concept of fate or destiny? These questions challenge our most fundamental beliefs, and they invite us to consider a more expansive view of existence. While definitive proof hasn't yet been found, the search pushes the boundaries of our knowledge and our technology. Now, this next story I'd like to read to you was submitted by Rhonda Renee, and I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right, Ensminger from Russellville, Kentucky. And I wrote this story down, so this is this is in second person. I had a phone call with her. And according to her, in 2019, while camping with her husband outside of Nashville, Tennessee, where she happened to be living at the time, she became violently ill after apparently being bitten by an insect while walking in the woods. She fell into a state of unconsciousness and had a near-death experience. When she came to, she noticed subtle differences in her surroundings, the camper, and even in her husband. After returning to their home in Nashville on her way to work the next day, and on the route she always took to get to work, she noticed that things were different, very different. Houses and buildings that weren't there when they left on the vacation had sprung up literally overnight. Even the foliage was different. When she got to work, both the interior and exterior of her workplace had changed. There were a number of people in the office which she didn't recognize. And she'd only been gone for like 2 or 3 days. The electronic communication she was accustomed to in the office didn't work the way she remembered them working. And when she tried to contact people within the building, by phone or by intercom or whatever she was using, none of the customary phone numbers or extensions she knew were working. She feels that she's been living in an alternate, for her, reality since 2019, but is gradually adapted. That's interesting. Now, parallel lives. The concept of parallel lives is a captivating and thought-provoking idea that suggests the existence of multiple simultaneous lives or realities that an individual may be living alongside their current existence. And it does bear certain similarities to the alternative universes or multiverse concept. but there are some significant differences. This notion stretches the boundaries of traditional understanding of time and consciousness, proposing that our soul or consciousness could be experiencing different lifetimes in different bodies, or even in different dimensions or universes, all at the same time. Imagine, if you will, a vast library, each book representing a different story of you. In one book, you're an artist during the 1920s, passionately painting your way through the vibrant art scene then. In another, you're a scientist in the future, exploring the mysteries of the cosmos. And in yet another, you're living your current life. Each book is a complete story, yet they all share a common thread, a common denominator. And that denominator is you. These aren't past or future lives, but rather parallel ones, existing concurrently and perhaps even influencing each other in subtle, mysterious ways. There's several different types of parallel lives. The first are two simultaneous lives of the same soul in two different bodies overlapping in time in the same timeline. These would be very different persons, often living in different parts of the world, but they never meet. In one life, you're a Wall Street banker, let's say, living in a multi-million-dollar penthouse in New York City. When in the other, you're a rag merchant in the slums of Calcutta. A second type, consecutive lives of the same soul in the same linear time, like a loop in time, and often in similar or the same location, but in different timelines. In this type, bodies can be similar, but they could have different families. Occupations and interests are usually the same or similar. I had a client, this was years ago, who reincarnated 3 times as a writer or artist in the 1920s and 30s in Paris on the left bank. Now, that was a time characterized by a veritable melting pot of creativity and innovation, attracting a constellation of artists and writers who would leave an indelible mark on the world of art and literature, which still influences us today. In 2 of those lives, my client was a writer, and in one an artist. In the sessions, he talked about rubbing shoulders with people like Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Gertrude Stein, Pablo Picasso, and James Joyce, to name just a few. These individuals, along with others of their ilk, were part of that of what Gertrude Stein famously dubbed the lost generation. It was a wild time to be alive. Now, I said he, but my client was actually a female in this life who, at least when I worked with her, was a suburban housewife and soccer mom living a very nondescript life outside of Schenectady, New York. This variety of parallel lives can be a Groundhog Day scenario for some souls if they're trying to learn a certain lesson in a particular culture. Or maybe they just love the time and the place so much that they don't want to leave till they get really, really bored. Third type is splitting timelines of the same life. This theorizes that there are myriads of different versions of yourself living in multiple universes. They all have the same starting point, same parents, same place of birth, same body, looks, name. But after that, all these lives can go in all possible directions, kind of like flights from a major airport. Same departure location, but different destinations. Here's one story that was submitted to me by Bree Lafferty from Montrose, Colorado. She wrote, "In my early 20s, I began astro traveling involuntarily and ending up in different dimensions and parallel universes. The most vivid was when I kept traveling to parallel timelines and trying to call my mom to know when I had gotten back to the right one. I also could tell it wasn't the right one because I always wore a black hairband on my wrist, and it was always a different color in the parallel places." She went on to say, "Recently, objects have been doubling or disappearing on my mom, my sister, and myself. The most intense one was when I witnessed my mom cut up her old credit card when a new one came in the mail. common habit of ours, as it is for a lot of people. It then showed up back in her purse next to her new one, despite both of us seeing her cut and dispose of her old one. Well, this would be a good place to bring this conversation to an end because, hey, I could go on all night with these. A few things before I wrap. As most of you know, I also train students in how to conduct past life regression and therapy and become board certified past life regression therapist. For more than 40 years, I've been doing this in live classes and lately, one on one online. I've been working on an online, on demand, what they call evergreen video training with 23 modules, a 300-page plus PDF training manual with more than 50 scripts, and also a bunch of extra peripheral material which you really need to do it right. And it also comes with a year's free membership from me. The on-demand program should be up and ready for access online in about a month. I also expect it to retail in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. In the meantime, I released what's known as a beta version, as some of you know about this. I released this as a test run to get feedback from students and also work out the inevitable bugs that are going to be in it. It contains everything that's in the final alpha version, along with board certification and mentorship. And a few weeks ago, I opened that to an initial group of 20 people for just $500 each, and a number of our group members took advantage of that and are working through the program as we speak. And as I said, the catch is that you've got to give me feedback on this and help me work out any of the bugs. So each week I personally send them 2 of the modules to listen to, learn, and to practice with. Now I still have a few spots open, so if this is something that might be of interest to you, becoming a full or part-time past life regression therapist, or maybe incorporating into an existing business or profession, like a Reiki or a massage therapist, a spiritual counselor, at $500 instead of $3,000, just for agreeing to complete the program and give me feedback about the beta version, and please drop me a line at either my email or direct message me here on Facebook, and I'll get you started forthwith. As I said, I only have a few spots left. Our next Spiritual Hitchhiker's Practical Guide to the Afterlife and Beyond show will be in 2 weeks on Wednesday, October 23rd at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in the United States. The topic of the show will be near-death experiences, journeys to the other side and back. And my special guest will be Sean Leather. Sean is the founder and leader of Hawaiian IONS. Now, IONS is an acronym for International Association for Near-Death Studies, and they have groups all around the world. And Sean leads Near-Death and STE, which stands for Spiritually Transformative Experiences. He leads these sharing groups of many spiritual organizations. He also runs several NDE, STE, and Life After Death Facebook groups with a combined membership of over 1.1 million people. And that's a lot of people. And he's also a near-death experiencer himself. On that show, he and I will delve into the mysteries of NDEs and will explore the profound and life-changing encounters of those who have stood on the brink of the afterlife and then returned to tell the tale. From the tunnel of light to the life review, from encounters with loved ones to messages from beyond, this show will challenge your understanding of life, death, and the continuity of consciousness. So whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or simply curious about this phenomena of NDEs, this show will open your mind to the possibilities that exist for bridging the gap from this side to the other side. So join me and let's unlock the secrets together. And tell your friends about us. Remember, since this show is done within the Facebook group Reincarnation, Past Lives, and the Afterlife, they'll have to be a member to tune in. So in closing, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Concepts such as the Mandela Effect, time slips, alternate universes, parallel lives, invite us to consider the vast potential of our consciousness and the intricate, multi-dimensional tapestry of our existence. They challenge us to expand our understanding of reality and embrace the possibility that the universe, as we know it, is far more mysterious, complex, and interconnected than we ever imagined. For those who think that what we discussed tonight is preposterous, absurd, patently impossible, elaborate hoaxes, I leave you with the words of the immortal bard. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. So until Wednesday the 23rd, and as always, this is Dr. Bruce wishing you happy hitchhiking and happy trails. See you in 2. Good night.